Hi, my name is Mary Silverberg and I'm going to show you how to make my best ever cherry pie. I call it my best ever cherry pie because I like to give it away as gifts, and more often than not the recipient will come back to me and tell me that it's the best cherry pie that they've ever had in their whole life. To borrow a phrase from Oprah, it's ghetto fabulous. That means it's famous in my own hood. So stay tuned and I'll show you how to make my best ever cherry pie. Okay, first of all, we're going to start with a bowl, and I have in here 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of all vegetable shortening. So we have those ingredients in here, and I'm going to use a pastry cutter to cut this all together. So occasionally I'll just use a butter knife to clean off my pastry cutter. And we're just going to continue cutting through here until the pieces are about pea-sized. But don't worry, it does not have to be exact. Making a pie is more of an art than a science. It's almost ready, but not quite. And I think maybe just one more time going through. Okay, so that's about the consistency that I wanted, and I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of ice water. I'm not sure why ice water is important, I just know it is very important for a flaky crust. So we're going to add 6 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, I live in Colorado at a high altitude, and 6 tablespoons works for me. But when I lived in Missouri, sometimes I needed a little bit more. So depending on where you live, you might need a little bit more or less. And we're just going to mix that all together with a fork. And actually, to me, this looks like it needs 1 more tablespoon. So I'm going to add 1 more. So don't be afraid if you think it needs a little bit more at home to go ahead and add it. Okay, that's better. That was just about right. Okay, now I'm going to form this into a ball. And I found the best way to do this is to use a spatula. Okay, so I find the best way to form this into a ball is to use a spatula. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of flour on top, and then I'm going to use this spatula to pat it into a ball. Okay, try and get that out of there. And I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more flour on, a little bit on my breadboard, and then I'm going to use my hands to get it to make a nice ball. And as you can see, it's not perfect. It's just shaped like a ball of dough. And actually, I didn't get all my ingredients out of there, and that's okay. I'm just going to toss what's ever left in here in the trash. Okay, so we're going to cut this in half. Half is going to be for our bottom crust, and half is going to be for our top. So we're going to roll this out now. I'm going to put some flour on the bottom, and I'm going to put some flour on the top, a little bit on my rolling pin, and I'm just going to kind of tap it down to start with. Okay, just like that. Now I'm going to use my knife to kind of push in these edges so they're not getting all cracked and frayed. And I'm going to put some more flour on. And I think this is what really gives it a flaky crust, is that I roll a little bit, I clean up my edges, and I put more flour on each time. And I think that's what makes the layers of pastry in the crust. Okay, now I should say here that I'm rolling this out on a piece of wax paper, just regular wax paper, and I've cut it so that it's in a square. And I did that on purpose because when I get to the ends of my wax paper, I know it fits perfectly on a 9-inch pie crust. So I'm just going to keep rolling it out, adding my flour, and pushing in my edges so they're not getting all cracked and unmanageable. Okay, so that looks just about right. I'm just going to put a little more flour on. If you notice, I'm out to my edges. I have a circle. If you get to where your pie crust is lopsided or has a piece sticking out, you can just cut it off and keep it to your circle. Okay, now transferring it. This might be a little scary the first couple times you do it, but it's okay. If it rips, it's easy to fix. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this halfway over. So I'm going to use my top hand to support it as it comes over, and I'm going to use the bottom hand to push it over. So just like that. We're going to gently peel this back, and then I'm going to put some flour here, and I'm going to take it back to this side. And then I'm going to slowly unstick my paper. I'm going to put my hands underneath and bring it right over to the pie plate. So I get my fingers under as far as they can go and just bring it right over. Now you want to work fairly quickly because it is delicate and it's easy to rip or tear. But if it does, don't worry, we'll just push it back together. Okay, so we fold this over, and now I'm just going to kind of push it down where it belongs. And like I said, if it rips, don't panic, we'll just push it back together. Okay. Now I'm going to use a knife to cut off my extra edges. We're going to go around just like that. Okay, perfect. Or maybe it's not perfect. You can see here I don't have that quite out. Not to worry. Now before I go any further, I'm going to take my ice water and just using my finger, I'm going to go all along the edge of the pie crust with the water. And that'll help the top crust to seal when I put the two together. So we're just dabbing a little bit of ice water all along the edge. Not too much, we don't want to soak it, just a little bit to make it damp. And that'll kind of act like glue. Okay, our next step is 2 cans of cherry pie filling. And as you can see, I spared no expense and got the best from Walmart. I don't like to use the low sugar, though. I must tell you that. So 1. And 2. Okay, now I'm going to share a little secret with you. Most people comment on my cherry pie that they really like it because it's not too sweet. Now that's kind of ironic because I add extra sugar to my filling. So I'm going to do that now. And this really makes a big difference. So I'm going to take 1 heaping tablespoon of sugar and sprinkle it on, and 1 more. So that makes a total of 2 heaping tablespoons of sugar. And all I have to do is repeat what I did with my first crust to make my top crust, and I'll do that now. Okay, so basically I did the exact same thing with my top crust as I did with my bottom crust. It's all rolled out. I'm going to use my hand to support this as I fold it over in half. Sprinkle a little flour, put it back over, and I'm going to put my hands underneath and just fairly quickly put it right on top of the pie. So I get my fingers underneath as far as they'll go, lift, and put it right on half of the pie. And then I'm going to take this half and fold it over. Now if it rips for you, don't panic, just try and get it in place and it'll still taste really good. So I'm going to cut off my edges And I'm just using the glass pan as my guide for where to cut. Now I have a lot of extra flour on the top that doesn't look real pretty, and I want to brush that off. So I'm using a pastry brush and just very gently I'm getting rid of that extra flour. Okay, so now I'm going to seal my two crusts together. I like to use a fork, and I like to do this specifically like this, and I'll show you why later. So I'm just going to do my fork marks all the way around, sealing the two crusts together. And now I'm just going to go around the edges with my hands and press in just a little bit to make sure there's no thin crust overhanging the edge. Now I'm going to put some sugar on top. And I'm going to start with the edge here. And those little fork marks, those little grooves are going to hold all my sugar. And that's going to make your crust taste really good. Not just the pie, but down to the very last bite of the crust. It's going to be sweetened with sugar. And you can do it other ways, but I really prefer using the fork because it makes those grooves, and then that really holds the sugar in there nicely. Okay, and now I'm just going to sprinkle some on the top, just like that. And now I'm going to use my fork to poke some vent holes in here. So, and what I like to do is put the fork in and give it just a little gentle shake back and forth. That makes the holes just a little bit bigger and allows the steam to escape so your crust doesn't explode. Okay, so now our pie is ready to go in the oven. I'm going to put it on a cookie sheet, and I placed a piece of foil on the cookie sheet because often some of the cherry pie filling will leak out, and this will really save you a big mess cleanup if you can just throw the foil away. And now it's ready to go in the oven. So I've preheated the oven to 350 and it's all ready to go. And we're going to stick that in there, and it's going to go in for about 45 minutes until it's about golden brown. Now, most newer ovens cook evenly, and you don't have to worry about the crust getting too brown before the pie is done. But if you find that your edges are getting really brown and it doesn't look like the middle of your pie is done, and it's only been in there for like 15 or 20 minutes, you're going to have to put some foil around the edge of your pie crust to keep it from burning. But I really think that if you have a newer oven, you'll be fine. So that's going to go in for about 45 minutes. Okay, so it's been a little bit longer than 45 minutes, maybe closer to 60. But some days it just needs longer. But this pie is done and ready to come out of the oven. And if you look closely, you can see the edges are nice golden brown, and you can see all those yummy flaky layers in the center. Okay, I'm just going to let it cool completely, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge to let it firm up. Okay, so this is all nice and chilled, and we're going to try our first piece here. Look at that. Does that look delicious? Can't wait to try a bite. Best ever cherry pie.